Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Friday, September 15th, 2017. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker. J-Book, the great debate of Buckeye Nation as far as the quarterback situation, has now reached recruits. We know Jackson Carman and Micah Parsons. That's been talked about a lot. Even Urban Meyer commented on that. He couldn't talk about which recruit, but everybody knew he was talking about. Everybody knew who the reporter was asking about when they asked it. It's reached former players, with Noah Brown and, Zach Bourne bickering about it a little bit. You have been all completely on top of that story. You played college football, of course. Just asking your opinion here, but, we've talked about recruits are talking about it, former players are talking about it. What do you think's going on in Ohio State's locker room? Do you think there could be a division there, and if so, how much of one?
First, I just want to say, Dave, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a collective group of people just be so overtly opinionated about the quarterback position. And I think it's just a divided locker room. And I think it could be a situation where the younger guys are all pushing for Haskins. And I think some of the veterans, like Billy Price, those guys, they're going to be ride or die with JT. Those recruits, they're not just coming up with these opinions on their own. So they're essentially hanging out with a lot of the younger guys that are on the team. A lot of these Ohio State recruits so well that a lot of these younger guys are 4- and 5-star high school All-Americans. They know each other from the camp circuits. All of these guys are in group text messages with each other. Whenever these younger recruits go on visits, they're being hosted by the younger kids on the team that are true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, the guys that are closer to Haskins' age. So I anticipated that the younger crowd is really saying that game recognizes game. Haskins should be the guy that's playing. And I think a lot of these younger recruits, they're being fed the narrative that at Ohio State, the best players should be playing or the best players play. And in their eyes, they believe Dwayne Haskins is a better quarterback than JT Barrett, so they're pushing for him. But you also have the older guys who've been to war with JT. They've seen him win ball games, and they're going to believe that he's the best quarterback to win the football game for them. So I think you do have a divisive locker room, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because with the outside Buckeye Nation, former players pointing the fingers at each other, it's just not a good look overall.
It's still amazing to me looking back on it how Cardale Jones and JT Barrett handled the situation that they were both in. Whether you want to look at the end of 2014 when JT was hurt and couldn't play in the playoffs after leading the team to the postseason in the Big Ten championship game, and then Cardale takes over. Barrett was still giving fiery halftime speeches, whereas you could tell a guy like Braxton kind of mentally checked out. He wanted his guys to win, but Barrett was so locked in. And then next year, I was so impressed. So I was impressed with how Barrett handled that. And then I was so impressed with how Cardale handled things the next year. He could have went nuclear after he was benched. And when he had to look over his shoulder, and he didn't. He always, he never did. Maybe he should have, but he never did. And they were able to keep that locker room together and finish the season strong after that loss to Michigan State with wins over Michigan and Notre Dame. Offense didn't perform like it should that year, but I think that was more on the coaches. I don't think it was because of divisive locker room. My point is, it can go one of two ways. It can go like that if there's a quarterback change, or the quarterbacks, because they handle it so well, there's not a divisive locker room. Then it could be like a Beckman-Pryor situation where you had not only did the older guys like Beckman, I think kind of everybody liked Beckman. And Pryor was, I think the younger guys liked him, but the older guys, I think, not only didn't think he was ready, they despised him. And I don't see the older guys on this team despising a guy like Dwayne Haskins. He's a likable dude. And JT Barrett's the type, I know this is a long-winded thing, but I'm trying to get all this out. If JT Barrett's such a good leader, could it be if a quarterback change is made or if there is some undecisiveness, could this be a locker room that handles it better than most if JT and Dwayne Haskins handle it the way they should? And because the older players, I don't think they hate Dwayne Haskins.
All right. That's a lot to dissect there, and I just want to start. By saying
it only took me 3 minutes to get to it.
Well, I have posted on the front row earlier in the week. I had a parent that reached out to me and shared some of the thoughts, and obviously, as one parent, share what their kid is saying to them, but they're telling me that the whole narrative of JT being such a superb leader is being vastly oversold by the coaching staff. Now, what you have in JT is a guy who is struggling to lead on the field. And when they say leadership, they're talking about the qualities on the field, because when you think of a guy that's supposed to be the general of your offense, he's supposed to be elevating the play of the guys around him. Well, that's not the situation at Ohio State right now, because Barrett has already come out and said that he's second-guessing himself. Now, the other dynamic of the situation is Barrett is such a good person and a good, teammate that I don't think the locker room, if he is demoted and has to take over, I don't think you're going to have such a big riff in the locker room because of his personality. He's going to be able to hold it together. Yes, he will be disappointed, obviously, because he's a competitor, but I don't think you're going to have such a toxic situation and such an overbearing personality like you had with Pryor or maybe Troy Smith's situation. So it's a lot to pack in there, because you talk about two things: Barrett, the leader on the field, and Barrett, the leader in the locker room. Those are two drastically different dynamics, because Barrett on the field is not getting it done, but Barrett off the field, I think, as a senior and the care for this program, will help nurture the transition to Haskins if it happens.
All right, after asking you about a 5-minute question previously, I'm going to get this one in and out. Will Kevin Wilson get more freedom to do what he wants offensively moving forward, J-Book?
No, he's not going to get the freedom. Urban Meyer had came out already this week and and I think it's flipped past a lot of people, but Meyer dropped the little nugget that Kevin Wilson was brought here to Ohio State specifically to enhance the Ohio State offense. And what is the Ohio State offense? That is Urban Meyer's baby, is what you're seeing right now. So Urban essentially said Kevin was brought in here to enhance what they already had in place, not to specifically bring Kevin's entire offense and doing a wholesale overhaul change, which, in my opinion, needs to be done. So Kevin, he's going to be boxed in. He's going to be asked to run Urban's offense. Yes, he's going to have the go ahead to make all of the calls as far as the play calling on Saturday, but I think he's going to be limited on what he can do. Now, the problem that we have here, Dave, is you're asking a guy to essentially call your offense that's not necessarily his. So, yes, it's going to be very difficult to make the adjustments on the fly. He's not calling his offense. It's like it's like any person in business. If you have something that you've mastered that is your own, when something goes awry, you're going to be the one that be able to quick fix it and be able to adjust accordingly. If you're working with somebody else's work and you're asked to adjust on the fly, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to take you a lot longer. So I think Kevin's going to be tasked with trying to maneuver Urban's offense as best as he can.
I agree with all that, and I asked Urban on Monday that question about, can you explain how much freedom Kevin Wilson has as far as designing the offense and calling the plays, and he said just what you said, that and to Urban's credit, he hasn't changed his tune. He said that when Kevin Wilson was hired that he's here to enhance the Ohio State offense, make us better, and I know fans don't like hearing that. I guess, I don't want you to misinterpret my question. I know, because I agree with everything you said. I don't think this is going to be this offense is going to get overhauled by any means. It's going to be the Ohio State offense. I just wonder if Kevin Wilson is going to have more freedom going forward. We're going to see more tweaks. We're going to see more of the Kevin Wilson influence. You don't think any of that's going to happen? You think what it is what it is right now, and he's not going to have any more freedom at all going forward?
I mean, the wrinkles the things that Kevin Wilson brings to the table with his offense, we don't have the quarterback to necessarily run it. At Indiana, he rarely ran the quarterback, and he was the type of guy that's going to pepper the entire field, with a array of wide receivers going 4 and 5 wide. We don't have the capability to do that right now with JT at quarterback, and I'm not sure that we have the wide receivers capable of doing that. We may, but it's so hard to determine how good this wide receiver group can actually be with the inconsistent quarterback play. Now, can Kevin Wilson, add some elements to it? Sure. But at the end of the day, I think the foundation of what this Ohio State offense is going to be is what Urban wants to run. Now, can Kevin Wilson, put a new light fixture in the house? Can he put some new blinds up in there? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the offense is going to look like Urban Meyer's house that he wants Kevin Wilson to run.
Before I let you go, let's touch on the defense, your side of the football, and let's start with where you play, the defensive backfield. I mean, I think Denzel Ward's playing really good. I think Jordan Fuller looks like he's going to be a future all Big Ten type safety. He's not there yet, but I think he's going to have to play more than Eric Smith as the year goes on. At least I hope he does. But the rest of the secondary is just not playing well. I thought Damon Webb played well at times against Indiana, but so the secondary has really left a lot to be desired. I guess we shouldn't be surprised when you lose 3 first-round draft picks all from your secondary. You're probably going to take a hit, but they've taken more of a hit than I thought they would, J-Book. Talk about the secondary and maybe talk about what else you think is wrong with this defense through 2 games, whether it's coaching, personnel, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'm just going to be flat out honest with you, Dave. It's terrible, and it's embarrassing. No way in hell should an Ohio State secondary be dead last in NCAA in passing yards given up. I don't care how many guys that you lose to the NFL. You're recruiting 4- and 5-star guys to come behind them. The one thing that really irks me is we went back to that technique that Ohio State was using whenever Withers was here. When Chris Ash came over here, he pretty much changed the technique as far as the defensive back. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Kerry Combs is teaching that. True, he is teaching it, but when it comes to technique, that comes from the direction of your defensive coordinator. And Chris Ash had the defensive back playing the ball in the air. Right now, we're back to what it was with Withers, where the defensive backs are playing the wide receiver, and so their key is read the wide receiver's eyes. When you see the eyes go up in the air, you punch through to try to knock the football out. And you have 2 set of defensive coordinators. You have 2 techniques as far as the defensive back. A lot of defensive coordinators, they're going to teach their DBs to play the football because you're more likely to get your hands on the football, thus creating more turnovers. And you have another set of defensive guys who strongly believe that you don't play the football because you can lose track of where the wide receiver's at. So you're going to play the wide receiver, and then you're going to read the eyes, and then you're supposed to get your head around at that point. And they're not doing that. So these guys are losing. They're losing these wide receivers. They have no idea where the football is at in the air, and it's just a big mess out there. So it's something to keep an eye on. Can they get better these next couple of weeks? I think they will. They're going against teams that they should be able to lock down, especially Army, who doesn't even throw the football. But I'm very concerned about Maryland. Maryland, if they come back out here against Maryland and they haven't shown any improvement, Maryland would throw for 400 yards on them. And I wholeheartedly agree with your assessment. Jordan Fuller, he needs to be playing back there at safety full time. Eric Smith, he's just not getting it done. I wouldn't mind these next couple games getting Jeffrey Okudah in there as well as Sean Wade to see what they can actually do, because I'm not seeing the elevated play from the other DBs besides Ward that they hyped up all off season. So hopefully they can get it together, but there's no excuse for an Ohio State secondary to be ranked last in pass defense in this day and age, especially how well they recruit.
This is why people love J-Book. I've had a lot of requests to get J-Book on the show more often. I'm going to try to get him on every Friday. He came strong as usual this morning. Thank you very much to Jonah Booker. You can read his column every week on Bucknuts. It is outside Columbus. You can follow him on Twitter at JBook37. He's also all over the front row message board on Bucknuts. So thanks a lot to J-Book, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.